Hey everyone, I'm Lauren Conlin, and welcome to Pop Crime TV's The Outlier podcast. Today, we're going to be diving into a really powerful new series on investigation discovery called Toxic, and it's hosted by Elizabeth Chambers, who many of you know as Armie Hammer's ex. And this show premiered on Monday, May 5th at 10/9 Central, and it's also streaming on Max the very next day with the episodes you may have missed. And this 6-part journey takes us through the dark side of love, exploring real stories of manipulation, violence, and betrayal through the eyes of the survivors themselves. And in the season premiere, it's titled Sleeping with a Stranger. We meet such a strong woman, Kelly Sutliff, a survivor whose fairy tale exposed shocking loopholes in our legal system, which, if you watch my channel, many of you are familiar with these. But Kelly joins us today to share her story, her resilience. And let me tell you, she is resilient, and why she wants to continue to speak out and help others. So this episode, it does contain discussions of domestic violence, and it may be distressing for some listeners. So please just take care of yourself and be advised. But with that being said, I'm going to bring Kelly in. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Hi, Lauren. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course. I really appreciate you being with us here and sharing your story on the premiere episode of Toxic. Now, you describe your early relationship as this whirlwind romance, and it felt like a fairy tale. Can you take us back to the early days? What drew you to your ex-husband? And then when you first started noticing these red flags?
Sure. So, what really drew me to Chris is he seemed to come off completely authentic and really wanted me to be authentic as well. He really presented as Prince Charming, really everything that I was looking for. He kind of checked off every single box. He was really kind. He was generous. He was kind to other people. And he really seemed to love me. So, the beginning of our relationship, I always tell people, I would have told you that I had the perfect husband up until the day that he tried to kill me. Looking back on things now, I think there were some red flags that started to display themselves after we got married. But up
Okay.
until then, there really weren't many red flags.
I remember you said in the episode, you said something like, he was really telling you he loved you at first, like very quickly, like very open, which I mean is something that every woman would want, or it seems like we would want a guy that's open with us, who's honest with us, who says, I love you. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not going to play games. But then looking back, you kind of said, maybe that was a little weird.
Right, right. I think it was on our second date where he told me that he loved me. And I can remember in that moment, my gut kind of sank because, at that point, I didn't love him. I didn't really know him. But I really kind of rationalized it away to say to myself, like, well, this guy's just really into you. And this is a good thing. Maybe this is something you want.
Yeah, that's so true because you like him and it's like you don't want to ruin this. You're just going to rationalize it. That makes so much sense. And that's something you kind of had to do throughout this relationship. So, if you don't mind, if it's not too painful, could you sort of take us through when it started to escalate? And at one point, I think you had realized, like, I think he's poisoning me. I mean, not to give too much away, but yeah, could you take us through that?
Right. So, like I mentioned before, there really weren't any blaring red flags until the night that he tried to kill me. And what happened that day was I woke up really early. My dog that I had at the time, who has since passed, he got me up to go out to the bathroom early, which wasn't
Mhm.
typical for him. So I got up, and when I came back into the bedroom, the way Chris was laying on the bed sleeping and where his phone was positioned on his chest just looked really weird to me. And my gut kept saying, go through his phone, go through the phone. And it was like a nagging feeling that just would not leave me alone. So I did. And then I found all these horrific messages with another woman that were not only just incredibly sexual, they were demeaning lies about me. And when I confronted him, that's when the entire day of me trying to figure out if I'm going to leave him and, him kind of antagonizing me about whether or not I was going to leave him. And I think the icing on the cake was, at one point later on that day, I told him that I was going to leave him. And that's when he snapped. And that's when he physically assaulted me, where he strangled me 3 separate times, held a military knife to my throat, poured a bottle of Xanax down my throat. And luckily I escaped. The police came, but it wasn't until after that night that I got my hands on his phone that everything else unraveled, including the drugging and the raping.
And Kelly, before we get into that, I should have clarified. Now, how long did you guys date, you and Chris, before you got married?
Sure. So I met Chris. It was a very fast moving relationship, which I definitely take some responsibility for allowing it to move at that pace. We met in August of 2018. He was living with me in November of 2018. We got engaged December of 2018. We were married, officially married, in January of 2019. And then we had another wedding where we announced our marriage in April of 2019. So it really moved at a fast pace.
And then when did the incident occur where he attacked you?
It occurred on December 16th, 2019.
In December. Okay, so the following December. Yes. Okay, got it. So you had been together for a year, basically. Let's just call it a year, if that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this horrific beating takes place, the strangling. You call the police and they arrest him.
Well, yes, but they took him to the hospital because, as you see in the episode, he had cut himself, which he continued to make deeper and deeper throughout that 45 minutes of him assaulting me and destroying my home. So instead of him, going to jail, he ended up going to the hospital that night.
That was infuriating. And then just go on with what you had discovered on his phone, because this is huge. And I just, God, I can't even imagine as a woman, as a wife, as, you're looking at this and this is supposed to be someone that loves you and that you love deeply.
Right. And I thought, obviously, up until that day, that's what I had. When I got his phone, I found hundreds of pictures of me sleeping. And they didn't just look like I was sleeping. I looked incapacitated, is the best way to describe it. And I have no memory of any of this stuff. Then I found videos in his phone, where one of the videos is I'm completely passed out and he films me. Then he films himself masturbating to me as I'm completely passed out. There were really creepy pictures he took of himself with me, completely passed out. And then there were also, I think it was one or two videos where he has this little tube and he's putting it under my nose and I'm completely passed out.
Wow. I mean, your whole world just collapses at that moment. I mean, and then yeah, so you have this phone, you have this information, and then what do you do with it?
I got sick to my stomach. I
Yeah.
was horrified. And it took some time to really process what I just seen. And then that's when everything clicked. When I was like, oh my God, that incident where I woke up and he was inside me and I jumped out of bed and was like, what are you doing? Everything just then made sense. that he had been drugging me and raping me, and the sickness that I was sick with for so long that the doctors could not figure out what was going on. It all just clicked. So what I tried to do was tell the police and the prosecutor's office. I tried to show them the phone, and they were kind of like, we can't look at the phone. We can't look what's in it. We need a warrant. We don't want to know. Don't tell us what's in it. So I kept saying, and I told them the first time I met with them in December, please get a warrant for his phone. You need to know what's in his phone. And they never got the warrant. So by the time they got the warrant, Chris had completely wiped his phone. So the pictures and that I had saved, because at some point I just stopped going through. I didn't want to see the rest. So I had forwarded some of the stuff I found to my phone. I handed it over to them, but they said it wasn't enough.
I mean, that is so infuriating, so incredibly infuriating. And I've definitely, unfortunately, heard of other incidents like that, or cases like that. But just, for people watching who haven't seen the episode yet, could you just go back and talk about how you weren't feeling great? You couldn't figure out what was going on, just these little things. And then when that started to make sense after you saw the phone.
Sure. So before I met Chris, I had gone to Yacht Week in Croatia, and I must have picked up a virus or something. So my body was fighting a little something. But when Chris and I met, and he was staying at my house all the time before he even moved in with me, that sickness got worse and really kind of progressed into something different. So I was getting these hives that were welts all over my body. I mean, I was on prednisone for a year at least. And I was having severe headaches, stomach issues. I would wake up and my arm would be completely swollen out of the blue. At one point, my one leg stopped working, and that landed me in the hospital because they were afraid I might have had a blood clot. So I was literally, during that time period, in and out of the hospital multiple times, in and out of doctors' offices, and no one could figure out what was going on.
What? I mean, and you had no clue. You never would have suspected Chris, but then it turns out Chris was drugging you so
I
he
believe he
could,
was.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I believe he was. Yeah.
Okay. So he could do these things to you that you saw on his phone. Uh, Now take me to the point where we were at previously, where he was arrested, but he went to the hospital. He's digging this knife deeper in himself. The prosecutors, they never went through his phone. So what happens?
So I end up living in a hotel for 2.5 months while they fix my house. And then the stalking begins, where he finds me at the hotel, and he also lets himself be known when he's stalking. So there was one incident where I'm getting out of my car, and the hotel I was at, there was a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot kind of across the street. And I got out of my car, and there he is, flicking the lights and then zooming away. Just so I know, so he knew, or I knew that, he's basically telling me he can find me. Then when I moved back into my house, the stalking occurred at my house, to the point the police at one point had a deer camera outside of my house. And everybody said, law enforcement and the prosecutor's office said that we know he's stalking you. We just cannot prove it because we can't prove it's him behind the wheel.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And this is what it infuriates me to no end when this happens, because it's just like, I'm sorry. So are you waiting for me to die? Are you waiting for him to murder me and then you can do something about it? And I understand, the law is the law is technically black and white. There's no gray area there. So I do appreciate and understand that, but it gets so frustrating because like, this is your life. I mean,
Right.
How did they offer to put like detail, like secure, or like at least a cruiser outside to monitor your house if they couldn't do anything else?
So I do know, and I didn't know it at the time. They didn't tell me at the time, but I know now the police were doing extra drive-bys. But I do have to tell you, Lauren, I ended up hiring my own private security that at certain points when I felt like I might be more in danger by Chris, I had them sit outside, hidden, of course, but 24 hours a day. But again, that at my expense. So
Yeah.
so I'm having to protect myself using my own finances. And when when you're really taught that the system is there to protect you.
Yeah, Kelly, I really can't imagine. I mean, it's terrifying and it's incredibly frustrating. Well, I want people to watch the episode, but I would like you just to sort of take us over that arc, I guess, to him stalking you and then you finally getting or working your way to court in New Jersey.
Right. So Chris really dragged things out, both in criminal court and in family court. He didn't officially take the plea deal until October of 2022, and I was not
And what was he
officially.
charged with? I'm so sorry, just
Sure.
exactly.
So he was charged with aggravated assault by strangulation, criminal mischief,
Mhm.
and possession of a deadly weapon. He had a few more charges, but ultimately that's what he pled guilty to. And October of 2022, he received 3 years probation.
Wow. I mean, that's nothing. That's literally nothing. And he was there any type of restraining order or no contact order that he had to abide by with when it comes to you?
So there's a protective order that does end once his probation is over.
Oh my goodness. And now it's 2025.
Right.
So technically it's
This
over.
October. This coming October.
Oh, Kelly, I'm so upset for you and for this situation. I mean, do you know what he's doing now? Have you seen anything or heard anything about this, about what he's up to?
So I do. I know he's still in New Jersey. He doesn't live too close to me, but he also doesn't live too far
Mm,
either. And I also know that I am not his last victim. There was a woman who came after me that I have to tell you, Lauren, at my sentencing hearing, she had a restraining order out on him. And everybody at court knew it because the judge made reference to it.
wow.
Um, I don't think they're together anymore, and I think he's on to the next. So really the system just put him right back out to reoffend, and like I said in my victim impact statement, I was supposed to die that night. Thank God I didn't, but one day someone's going to die.
Right. And that's what is so frustrating about this. I mean, no jail time for something like that where the intent was there, the malice was there. He, like you just said, he wanted you to die, Kelly.
Right.
And I mean, I will say I really appreciate investigation discovery, at least doing this episode and you having the confidence and the guts to tell your story, even though he's still out there and he could see it. And I love the public shaming. I really do. I think, we could have gone harder on him, but I mean, it's all factual. It's all there. And our discussion right now is not even really scratching the surface to what you went through. So
Mhm.
that's why I really encourage everybody to watch the series, watch your episode. It's an amazing, I guess, kickoff to what this series is and what it explores. And you sitting down with Elizabeth Chambers, also knowing what she went through, I mean, that must have been just an experience that sort of makes you not feel so alone, I guess.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful to Investigation Discovery and Elizabeth. I could not have had, a better experience in telling my story. The space they all held for me in the production company with such care.
Mm.
I'm just forever grateful. And, I kept saying to them, and I don't want to get emotional, but I never got justice for what Chris did to me. but they all gave me justice. And now my justice is May 5th, 2025.
Oh, that's sorry. That is really nice. I'm gonna cry now. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, what would you tell other women? I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be just women, but what would you tell them if they are in a situation like this, or maybe they meet someone and they're not quite sure, but something might be a little off? What would you tell them?
My biggest regret is that I didn't listen to my gut. On the first date, my gut was just saying to me, something isn't right. And I didn't listen to it. And I wish I did. So that would be my biggest piece of advice is if your gut saying something is wrong, something is wrong.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. I think it's so important to go with your gut, especially when it comes to relationships and especially with men like that you meet off, you know what I mean? Like it's so hard now because you've got these apps, you've got you've got certain things that I guess you can do to check out someone's background, but oh, this just it's a world we live in and it's terrifying. But Kelly Sutliff, I appreciate you sharing your story with me and to everybody on Investigation Discovery and everybody out there watching. You can watch the show every Monday night at 9 o'clock. And Kelly, if people want to follow you, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on all major social media platforms at Real Talk with Kelly. I'm also, which I wanted to mention, Lauren, as you know, a big part of my healing in this situation came from my protection dogs. I first got Stella. Now I have Luca and Dante. And recently I launched a 501c3 nonprofit, Kelly's Canines Tales of Courage, where we provide domestic violence survivors with trained protection dogs. So you can also find me on all major social media platforms under Kelly's Canines Tales of Courage.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh. Congratulations. I really love that. That is such
Thank
a good
you.
idea. And sorry, I'm
Thank you.
probably annoying everyone with my voice. Sometimes when people are listening, they're like, oh, why is your voice so high? It's because I got excited. But Kelly, that's incredible. Again, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I encourage everyone to watch Toxic on Investigation Discovery every Monday night. Thank you so much, Kelly. And hopefully we can connect again soon.
Please. Thank you for having me on.